Hey guys, it's Beata. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more about academics and specifically how I managed to graduate first in my department from Princeton. And that's the anthropology department. The easy answer is I still don't really know. But I've tried to come up with a few points that I think did help me succeed academically and go from being a high school freshman in my first semester who was getting B's and C's in some of my classes to then a senior college student who was really able to excel and feel confident in knowing the material. So I think one thing that really helped me is that I spent a long time deciding what major I wanted to do because I wanted to make sure I was really passionate about what I was studying. And in picking anthropology, I was definitely really excited about the material. I felt so lucky to be in a department where the professors were really excited about what they were teaching. That helped me kind of stay motivated, even when I was doing long readings that maybe weren't quite so invigorating in the moment. I was still able to understand the reason why I was doing everything. And when I got to the classroom, I was able to kind of find that energy to bring in new ideas, listen to other people, etc. That also meant that I would even kind of talk a lot about what I was learning. My friends senior year at Princeton were really patient with me because I talked all the time about my thesis research because I was just excited about it and interested in it. There was maybe a tiny element there where I convinced myself to be excited about it and interested in it, but I do think it was kind of cool. And so all the time I would come to lunch or dinner with them and sit down and be like, oh, I learned this today. I was reading this scholar. And they'd be like, okay, because they were studying things like computer science or politics, so very far removed from what I was doing. But that just kind of goes to show that I really was in a position to kind of put a lot of brain power and a lot of time and maybe even creativity towards what I was working on just because it was so interesting to me, which can kind of be half the battle. Another thing I did was I was able to live a totally balanced lifestyle. I spent a ton of time with friends. I was able to work out. I watched movies, had movie nights, went on hikes, went into the city in New York, and did funny things like going to the opera or going to museums for fun with my friends. So there was a lot of time that was balanced, a lot of free time. And I was also thinking about my work during that time sometimes, and that would kind of give me breaks to then have ideas come into my head. But I was able to do all of that because I had fine-tuned my study and my time management methods to be kind of specific to my own personal needs, and it really allowed me to get my work done effectively and to live that balanced lifestyle. So in particular, I made sure that I stayed healthy in my mind and in my body so that I was always able to show up and perform when I needed to. And I also was really able to kind of focus on what I needed the most. So I knew, okay, if nothing else happens, I need to get enough sleep every night and I need to do my work that's critical, like hard thinking work in the early morning. And even though that meant sometimes I was going to bed before friends and missing out on some things, that was the one thing that I said I was going to prioritize. And in doing that, I was able to really accomplish a lot of work in short amounts of time throughout my day. And then I had this other free time sometimes to do the fun stuff. So that was really cool. And I've definitely talked a lot about study methods in other videos. So feel free to check those out if you want to kind of work on that yourself. Okay, when we talk about grades specifically, which I don't really like to do because, to be honest, when I was studying at Princeton, I didn't know that there was a departmental ranking, and I was just focused in each class on learning as much as I could. I wasn't even really thinking about getting into grad school. At that point, I was just happy to be there at Princeton, and I said, okay, I'm just going to take classes that are really interesting and exciting and try to learn the most that I can. My performance doesn't really matter. And because I wasn't so stressed about my performance, I think I was actually able to excel a bit more. It also allowed me to kind of take risks. So my senior year, I took 2 graduate classes, and those were, of course, much harder workloads, much more challenging classes, and then they were going to have a harder grading at the end. But I took those risks because I really was interested in pushing myself academically. I knew that it was okay if I got a bad grade because it was cool that I could study alongside a lot of PhDs. And then in the end of the day, that actually ended up having a positive kind of weight on my GPA because I performed well in those classes and they ended up being a heavier, I guess, weight to tip the scale to kind of boost my overall grade point average, if that makes sense. So I didn't know that at the beginning, but I did assume that risk in just kind of focusing on being a learner, and it did pay off in the end. I also wasn't afraid to look stupid when I was in the classroom. So if I didn't understand something, I always raised my hand and asked the professor or asked other students to explain the concept. And that allowed me to get a deeper understanding of the material and also kind of lose some of that anxiety in the classroom about trying to seem like I knew things or seem like I kind of had it all figured out. More than that, I wasn't trying to show off in the classroom, in class discussions or when talking to the professor. I wasn't trying to come across as if I really knew everything. Instead, I was just sharing my ideas, and then in the written work, as well as in the discussions, I would kind of try and come up with a couple of unique ideas that I could share, but not just try and focus on only what the teacher would want or only what would make me seem like I was kind of the perfect student, if that makes sense. It's funny, one of my professors who's an academic mentor of mine, he actually joked with me that he didn't expect me to be the one to be the top of our department solely because I wasn't sucking up to other professors or trying to seem knowledgeable and smarter than everyone else. I was not afraid to sound a little silly every once in a while, kind of as I was trying to figure it out. And that was what allowed me to learn so much more and in the end produce high quality written content that got me the grades that put me first in the department. So that was funny and a little bit of a compliment, maybe also a worry, but mostly a compliment, just knowing that I was able to just kind of be a regular student because I was a regular student instead of trying to be the best of the best. And when I was being effective with my time management, a big consideration there was prioritizing strategically the assignments that did matter the most for my grades. So, of course, I was thinking about my learning, but at the end of the day, I was also saying, okay, I have this exam coming up. I'm going to put most of my attention towards that, or the same goes for essays or other assignments. At the end of the day, we're all just here to learn, and if you kind of honor that learning journey first instead of focusing on the grades, it can really pay off long term. So that is kind of my biggest advice when I think back on the past few years. I hope you guys found that interesting. It felt a little weird to make a video about that, but I think it's always helpful to share. And yeah, like and subscribe and let me know if you have thoughts. Bye for now.